All right, so we're going to do a whiteboard session today on Splunk again, but a little bit different. We're going to talk a little bit about utilizing Splunk with other tools, which I've mentioned in the past before. So, Rich, I remember we talked about using VirusTotal. So I think that'd be like a really good example to mention. So, can you tell them a little bit about VirusTotal and what it is and whatnot?
Yeah, so VirusTotal is a tool that you can use to like see malicious IP or like check IPs if they're malicious. So there's a site, you just type in VirusTotal, put in the IP, and you just click search, and it will tell you what country the IP is from, and list out everything if it's like a good IP, if it's malicious, and then from there you can just quarantine it or just disable the IPs.
Yep. So Rich is right. So so along with IPs, you also have like what emails and they have
Yep.
like there's some other like I forget what it is like. Of course, there's I forget there's hashes and things like that. Other objects basically you can put in there that will tell you whether that IP or address or object whatever it is bad or not. I think you can actually upload files too. I think as well on there. So with Splunk, remember how we talked about Splunk before? Splunk is a tool that collects a bunch of information. So just think about this as a bunch of information coming in, right? So you have stuff coming in from email. You have stuff coming in from like different servers.
Right.
You have stuff coming from the web. What else? You got stuff coming in from like different applications. So we do APPS here. And there's a whole bunch of other things like different appliances. You can put that there as well, right? So all this stuff is flowing into good old Splunk, right?
Splunk, yeah.
So as it's flowing into Splunk, what Rich would typically do is, and Rich, you can correct me at any point in time if you want, you'll have like VirusTotal that you may have an add-on or you may just have like a way for you to, let's say you run a Splunk search. So you run a SPL search, which is Splunk Processing Language. You run a search that says index equals to, let's say OS data, right? And then you see like an IP.
Like IP, yeah, malicious IP.
Yeah. So you see an IP. But in this case, we don't even know if the
Yeah, we don't even know. Yeah.
So we want to check against this IP now that we have in the log that says, hey, we found this IP, it's logging into your system, or your system is communicating to this IP every 30 minutes, every 50 minutes, whatever it is. Some interval is communicating to this IP. From a SOC standpoint, so your Security Operations Center folks, they're going to want to know what the heck that IP is and why your system's communicating. You can do it many different ways. So VirusTotal is one way. You have other tools that can do it, but we're specifically talking about VirusTotal at this junction. So what you can do, you can say, hey, I see an IP in here. You can literally go to www.virustotal.com and you can put in the IP in here, and then it'll tell you good, bad, or I don't know enough about this thing to tell you anything about it. So you can do that, but that's manual. So then you type an IP, you find an IP, then you got to do it one-on-one. That's exhausting.
Right.
So what we've done in the past is we've done workflow actions.
Actions, right.
So can you tell them a little about like what workflow actions are?
So workflow actions is something where there's two. You can do a post or a get.
Yep.
I think with VirusTotal we do a get, right?
You can do. I've never used it with the get.
No,
but
I
I've done
think we do a post. Yeah. So where once you put in the IP and you see that it's malicious or it's good, you can then do workflow action, go through the process. You just got to fill it out.
Yep.
And then once you've got all the information, you input it, you can also put the website. And once you save it and then add it to your data, it's just like a quick click. Once you click it, it takes you right to VirusTotal to see if that IP is still being malicious or not.
Yep.
And also with VirusTotal too, it tells you like the exact location, like if it's coming from China, USA, any parts of the world actually.
Yep.
And sometimes with companies, they have certain IPs or certain countries where they're blacklisted, and any IP that is coming from there, we have to act on it very fast because it's very bad for the company.
Yep. So a couple points that Rich mentioned. So IP, you find an IP, VirusTotal, you talked about workflow actions, we do a post. So the post, basically, if you're not familiar with post actions are, it's like, I have an IP, it's like me, when I go to the website, I'm posting something to the website, I'm inputting something that says, hey, tell me something about this. So like, whether you go on Facebook, you post something, like literally facebook.com/ I don't know, users, blah, 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 friends, whatever endpoint you're searching. It says, I'm looking for this thing. So we're going here, we find an IP, we're putting this manually into VirusTotal. In this case, we're telling Splunk, once we do a click on here, post this into VirusTotal for us. And then once it posts that, it literally opens up another page for you. And then now you can see all the same information that you'll normally see. So from a workflow standpoint, it makes things a lot easier rather than people manually going and doing these things, logging in, typing in. Just, you know, you want to, the name of the game is efficiency. Like, you want to be able to be efficient, and you want to have your team running efficiently and being able to let's say somebody goes in, like Richard goes in and puts in 10 dot, not 10, but let's say 101.45.68.19. SAR goes in looking for the same IP, but he puts in 101.45.67.19. See the screw up here, right?
Yep.
Then you avoid user error, like start typing in the wrong IP. Like, hey, I see this IP in China. Richard's like, bro, this IP is Algeria, bro. Come on, dog. Like, you got this wrong. So it's like little things like that you avoid, you know, because you're not depending now on manual user error. Like, you literally clicking. As long as the automation is on point and it's working the right way, you get all this information. Another thing that Richard mentioned is also being able to, so now you have like the country itself, who owns it, like the company, is it bad or good, or the verdict in this case. What else? How long the IP's been in existence, if it just, you know, got created. And it may tell you stuff about like the server type and all that other jazz. It may, I doubt it though, but there's some, I don't know if it's been a while since I used VT, but I don't know how deep it goes into that. But at the end of the day, all of this information is valuable information. In Splunk terms, we call that enriching your data.
Yep.
So we want this information now to go into Splunk. So that's what Richard's talking about. So now we want to pull this into Splunk. There's several ways you can do that. You can automate it, that when it runs these actions, a script can be, you know, written so that it can pull this. Or you can have some other workflow action that's working through here that's sending us to some other place where you're doing some analysis on it, and then finally enriching in Splunk if it matters. It all depends on like your team and what it is that, you know, that they're trying to, you know, accomplish and how they're trying to accomplish that. So there's several ways to skin a cat, you know, in a sense. But yeah, so that's kind of like a quick overview of like doing an integration with VirusTotal. There's a bunch of other tools that you can do the same thing with, you know. So CrowdStrike, I know we talked about that in the past. And there's like, you know, of course, Defender. There's a whole bunch of other things that we can use. So in this case, if you're not familiar with VirusTotal, they do offer, I believe, an API. So I think enterprise, and don't quote me on this because it's been a minute, but enterprise grade, I think accounts, you get more, you know, requests or queries. So you don't hit like rate limiters. So like you can imagine you going to VirusTotal like 10,000 times because you see 10,000 IPs. Like, it's like, hey guys, what are you doing?
You gotta have a talk.
You get money on. So going to them 10,000 times, you're gonna have to pay a little bit of money because that's a service that they're offering. Versus going to them like 5 or 6 times, just check a few things where it's like, oh yeah, this is just
good,
you know, we're doing this for the good of the world. So this is a community service, but if you're hitting my server 10,000 times, bro, you got to pay up. So, yeah, man. But yeah, this is just a quick whiteboard overview about, you know, Splunk and VirusTotal. I'll do just a quick recap again. So on this side, you got a bunch of data coming in. Let's say you got a bad email, you got some, crazy IPs that are now taking like DDoS, something like that, that's taking down your web server, or you have maybe some apps that aren't working right because you have some bad IPs. We see those IPs in Splunk, we run a search, we see that it's a bad IP. From that standpoint, we want the user to be able to click that IP, automatically open up VirusTotal and drop that IP in VirusTotal, and then for it to tell us is it good, bad, indifferent, doesn't really know who owns it, where's it coming from, and then we want this information to also get back into Splunk, and then that way you can build sort of like a trend analysis of like that IP and its functions and what it's doing. So that's sort of like the microcosm of like what's happening here. There's a lot more nuanced details that we can get into, but it's just a quick overview of like how Splunk integrates with VirusTotal. So hopefully this has been a good whiteboard session. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to hit us up at africansintechnology@gmail.com. Again, it's africansintechnology@gmail.com. Again, my name is Sar Levy, and this is Africans in Tech.